This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Casper, a better mattress for a better night's sleep. To find out more, try one for 100 days and get a $50 discount. Visit casper.com/MacVoices. And by TunnelBear, the really simple app to privately browse and get around block websites. To find out more and download your own TunnelBear, visit tunnelbear.com/MacVoices. Welcome to Mac Notables on MacVoices. This is the Talk of the Mac community. I'm Chuck Joyner. It's been way too long since we've had a chance to talk to Mr. and Mrs. Adam and Tonya Engst, but we're going to rectify that right now because we've got them both back and we're going to cover a whole lot of stuff. Tonya, it's great to see you as always.
Hello, Chuck.
And you brought Adam with you.
As always.
As always. Yes, it wouldn't be a party without the two of you. So there's so many things I want to catch up on, but one of the big ones that happened over, I guess, I don't know if it's a month old yet or not, was the Take Control website redesign. Something I know you've been working on for quite some time. And
years.
Wow. When it finally came out, it's like, wow, this is a whole lot different, and I think it really shows off the titles a lot better, especially the volume of titles you've accumulated. Yeah. So I'm not sure who wants to start, but I'll let somebody start and just take it from the top.
Well, I don't know. I mean, where to start? I mean, the original site I had designed with my background in web design, I'm being facetious here intentionally, back in 2003, because, this Take Control thing, we were just trying it. Had to throw a site up. Let's make it yellow. I like yellow.
Yeah, well, we had two books.
Yeah, so what difference does it make? You put the page up.
Yeah, and then a month or two later, we had 4 books. And then a year later, we had, maybe 8 books?
Yeah.
And then a year later, we had 14 books. It just kept growing. And we got a back end for it, right? So it wasn't just...
that was years later. We did this manually for years.
But the whole thing just grew organically for years and years. And we decided probably 5 years ago, okay, we'll save our pennies and we'll hire professional help, right? And so we did. We hired professional help and they were helpful, but various things occurred and it took much longer than you might think. Although the more we talk to people who run small and mid-sized companies about website designs where you work with some kind of independent website firm, we don't think we're the only people where it just takes a really long time. So that's comforting, but we hope to not repeat the process ever again where it takes that long.
It was over 3 years in the making, and a lot of that actually turned out to be the problem of syncing up. So website design requires a lot of feedback and a lot of testing. So, I mean, there's sort of the design phase, and then there's the implementation phase. And the design phase went slower than we would have liked, but wasn't truly problematic. But when it came to the implementation, it turns out that we build websites that are really complicated under the hood. And the developer hadn't quite realized how complicated it was, and B, it took him time to sort of figure that out and rewrite the code and get it up, bring it up to snuff. And what would often happen is he would do something and send us email and say, "Hey, check this out," and we'd be in the middle of a book deadline. I mean, literally cannot check this. Do not have time to think about it at all. A week or two would go by. We'd look at it, and there'd be some really blatant showstopper. I can't actually look at what you're doing because the whole site doesn't load. Just
right. Or
stuff like this happens because he's working on a local version on his machine, then he uploads it to our staging server, and things can go wrong. And so something goes wrong, the whole staging site doesn't load. I don't notice that for 2 weeks, and then I tell him, and he can fix something in 30 seconds. But if he's busy, then it takes him 2 weeks to fix the thing that takes him 30 seconds.
Right, and then there's all the things where our developer actually got much better at this towards the end, but there's all the things where we can look at it for 2 seconds and say, well, that's not the way it's supposed to work. Anyone could tell that.
That's
he couldn't tell that. He couldn't tell that because he just wasn't familiar with the way it should work. So we had to get we all had to sync up, as Adam said, and it took quite a while. In fact, one of the things that's kind of funny about the site is when we first spec'd it out, we decided to have a nice wood background because it would be kind of like iBooks. Only we chose, a wood color that we liked specifically and all this. And then in later versions of iBooks, no more bookshelves. And in later versions of Mac OS 10 and iOS, we're deprecating skeuomorphism and all the, things that make it look like kind of a real world thing. But we're like, well, but we like the wood. So we thought, well, it's kind of like we're recycling Apple's digital wood that they don't need anymore. That's kind of
wood's
cute.
nicer than theirs, though.
It is
cheap pine.
We spent a long time picking out our wood. And so then we thought at this point, everyone's like, we're tired of all this, open, airy design where you can't tell what's a button and what's not. So we've actually gotten very favorable comments on the wood. So there you go.
I hadn't even thought about that possibility that you were going for one thing and then the ground shifted under you. Because I kind of like the wood myself. I mean, it's very library-like. It's very comforting.
Well, that was exactly the goal.
Well, and it's us. This website is mostly Adam and I. We're not a huge company. Our committee that got together to talk about what the background should look like was Adam and I. And we live in the country. We live in a sort of a rural area. There's a lot of wood in our home, which is surrounded by trees. And we felt that it, reflected something about us. And we do love libraries and all that too. So, yeah. So,
Adam, I think you're the one that said that you end up doing websites that are very complex under the hood. That's something I'm not sure folks appreciate. Everybody has a website.
The term of art is business logic.
Business logic?
Business logic. So there's a great deal of business logic under our site, which means, for instance, a lot of it has to do when you're logged in. So when you log into our site, it knows all of the books that you've ever bought. And then things become true. So for instance, if you've bought a book, you probably shouldn't be asked to buy it again. So it shouldn't have a buy button. It should have its ebook extras button, trying to help you get an update or just read the blog about the book, things like that. Similarly, the site recommends books based on what you own, or what say if you put a book in your cart, it says, hey, these other ones, you might be interested in these other ones. That's great, but it shouldn't recommend ones you already own. So there's a whole lot of that kind of stuff that's really deep in the bones of the site. And people do not realize just how detailed this stuff is. Or even, for instance, there's a little green bar at the top of every book page in the catalog and the homepage. And similar, it's in the cart as well. And we can put messages there. And this was an idea we had. It's like, we're going to put messages there. But we discovered that the message needs to be different depending on what page it is. And so, it's not just having a green box, which it can have the same message. So, for instance, we can advertise the 50% off sale right now because, well, if you come in via the home page, you probably might need a different message than if you come in via the catalog page or hit a book directly. And so, just complicated.
Right. Or, if we were not having our 50% off sale right now, say you come in, but you've gotten a 50% off coupon code from somewhere else, right? You want to keep that. So we shouldn't be telling you about a 30% off sale or something like that. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of what coupons have you got? What did you come in from? And Adam and I, of course, built the old site pretty organically over a period of years, where mostly what would happen is I would be answering customer service questions, and I would be like, oh, this customer is not happy. And not only that, I have nothing good to tell them. The only good way to solve this problem is to get the website to work better for this customer. So then I'd go up to Adam's office and we'd talk about it. And if he could, he would fix it. And then I'd write back to the customer and say, thank you so much for your feedback. Let's, we got it working for you. And that was it was really closed, a tight loop, right? But we ended up with all these crazy interdependencies where, we would have, everything worked, but things relied on other things. And so we had to almost like remember what all this was so that we could duplicate it into this new site. And so that was very exciting for us.
And there's weird stuff like, okay, you have an old book isn't even for sale anymore. It's about mobile me. We don't want anyone to buy the book about mobile me, because really you don't want it. Or iTools for that matter, as long as we're going historical. But those books still exist on our site, and they have to, because those people could click a check for updates link in the book that they have, people who bought that book years and years and years and years ago, and we want to offer them a deal on the iCloud book, because that's what's current. But we don't want it to show up in the catalog. So how do you prevent that from happening? And so there's a variety of ways this could happen, but you have to come up with one. And you have to then make sure all your data is consistent with it. And, if it doesn't show up in the catalog, what about showing up on the homepage? What about showing up in the little pop-up menu where you can quickly jump to titles? How far back in time should those titles go? Do we want to still be promoting, take control of booking a cheap airline ticket? It's not wrong so much. I mean, it's not massively out of date, but, it's not like mobile me, so it still exists. So any event, it just complicated. And I think the mark of a good website is that it shouldn't look complicated on the surface. The user shouldn't realize that it's complicated, but that it's still doing stuff. It's trying to anticipate your situation, anticipate your needs, and meet them without you having to, jump in hoops or ask for help. And probably the biggest problem that we had in some ways is that we're writers. Our solution to any problem is to explain it in text.
At length.
You should click over there.
Because someone's going to write in with an obscure question about a small point that we missed. So the best thing is to add a whole nother paragraph to address that person so they'll be happy. But then wait, there's another complication that's been brought up by that other paragraph. And so we really worked very hard on not doing that, because it gets insane. It just gets insane.
I don't know why you went to all that trouble, because if I go to Amazon, they just try to get me to buy the same thing over and over and over.
Well, actually, no. If you're logged in Amazon and you go to the same page, Amazon will say you purchased this on such and such a date.
Oh, it will, but it also it also will throw it right back at me as soon as I log in.
But for the most part, stuff that you buy on Amazon, you might want again. Even a book, you might be loved it, so you're buying it for for someone as a gift. Whereas for the most part, with our books, people don't need to buy them twice.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And of course, I'm being a little facetious, right, because it's interesting. And you're right. I don't think a lot of people understand what goes on, the logic that has to happen to make sure they're given that kind of experience. Especially the part where you log in and, okay, you have bought these books and there's a free upgrade here and a free upgrade there, or maybe this book is out of date and this is the one you want to get next, or to replace it. So
one of the things that we're doing actually is we're deprecating bundles. So long ago we used to do bundles. So we have one, for instance, for iWork. Pages, take control of pages, take control of Keynote, take control of numbers, and it would you want that bundle to appear on all the book pages. But what if you already own one of them? Then the bundle doesn't make sense, so it needs to disappear from all of them. And, again, that logic, I mean, our developer, periodically we'd tell him something and you could kind of, imagine him the email rolling his eyes going, really?
Well, the thing with the bundles is when we started, we didn't have very many books, and we found that people really liked it if we would say, oh, well, like these two books really go together very well. In fact, the author or the authors were really collaborating a lot while they wrote the books, and they go together pretty well, and you should buy both of them and you should get a discount because, in fact, there's some content that's duplicated between the two of them pretty much. So that worked great. But then we had so many books that we could no longer effectively anticipate the right bundle for most people, because people would already have one of the books, or there'd be a use case where you wouldn't want all the books or whatever it was. So we said, fine, we will have a standing 30% off bundle offer if you buy 3 or more books. So we instituted that. And then it was and remains a little bit challenging to help people make sure that they understand what the offer is and get 3 books into the cart. And also, it's a little tricky sometimes because if someone has a better bundle offer or a better coupon for 1 book, sometimes the cart either can or can't be smart about making sure people get the best possible coupon. But so we've got all that working. It's working pretty well. And now we are getting feedback from customers that a problem is that they don't always want to buy 3 books. They want to buy each book as soon as it comes out for 30% off, because they will eventually buy all the books. So they want like a pre-bought bundle. Which we just can't do. So for anyone who just really wants to do that, they need to go join Tidbits, because Tidbits members get a standing 30% off. But it just feels like the more bundles and coupons you have, the more complicated the business logic has to be. And I think for people who aren't Adam and I, we can hardly keep track of them all. It's almost impossible, I would think, for anybody else.
This edition of MacVoices is sponsored by TunnelBear, the really simple app to privately browse and get around block websites. To find out more and download your own TunnelBear, visit tunnelbear.com/MacVoices. I'm happy to welcome TunnelBear as a sponsor of MacVoices. TunnelBear is a simple, attractive app that addresses one of those issues we all face as denizens of the 21st century: web surfing security. TunnelBear is an easy-to-use VPN with over 5 million users. What makes TunnelBear so great is that it's simple. With just a click to turn it on and turn it off, you can browse the internet in complete privacy, get around censorship, and unblock websites. So what's a VPN, I hear you ask? That's geek speak for a virtual private network. What it means is that what you send and what you receive is encrypted, so it can't be seen by governments, ISPs, or anyone else, especially the bad guys. Most VPNs can be a challenge to set up and maintain. I've seen tutorials out there for the roll your own VPNs that promise in 14 steps your VPN might work. Right, 14 steps. With TunnelBear, you just install, click, and you're protected on public Wi-Fi or while traveling. And TunnelBear has apps for your Mac, your iPhone, your iPad, and even a Chrome browser extension. So one solution addresses all your web surfing privacy concerns. TunnelBear is affordable too, with a free option to get you started, and several tiers that will address how much secure web surfing you need. And in today's world, you need a lot. Find out just how easy web surfing security can be by visiting tunnelbear.com/MacVoices and downloading your very own TunnelBear right now. You'll be amazed at how simple and easy security can be. That's tunnelbear.com/MacVoices to try TunnelBear free and make your web surfing more secure. Welcome, and thanks to TunnelBear as a sponsor of MacVoices. Again, it's just fascinating to sit here and listen to you talk through it, because I think we all tend to think, oh, okay, I've got this coupon code or that coupon code, and I put it in and it deducts the appropriate percentage, and that's it. And there really is a lot more to it, especially from your side, because you've got multiple deals going, you've got multiple categories of members, or as you said, Tonya, discounts, and then I'm sure there are extra coupons. Then, as Tonya mentioned, you're doing a 50% off
sale. We are
sale.
doing a 50% off sale right now, which is basically as good as it gets. I don't think we have ever done a sale for more than 50%. Very occasionally, we'll have a book upgrade from a second edition to a third edition that would be more than 50% just for that upgrade. But as far as just go to the cart, load it up, buy whatever you want, this is as good as it gets. So people should feel free to shop with abandon.
and before, we'll do a commercial for this right quick. So it's on right now. It's any and all Take Control books, and it runs through
24th, I think.
September 24th.
Next Monday.
No, August. It runs through August 24th,
August
which
24th.
is Monday.
It only feels like September. Okay, yeah, I want to make sure we push people in that direction, because that is a great deal. I mean, the Take Control books are a great deal at their cover price, but it's even better now.
Great. Well, and we want anyone who is on a budget or just really likes a discount. This is the time to come in and just pick up anything that you want to read now or in, the near future. Stock it up. And it's funny, most of the shopping that I do on the internet myself is typically for gifts or clothing. And certainly I know how to find a coupon code on a website and paste it into the cart. But I've rarely found a website that is super responsive about like helping me get the right coupon code in. But it seems like that's something that our readers ask about an awful lot. So we've sort of tried to preempt customer service questions by making it more obvious. Like if someone goes to our site right now and starts shopping, there's a message right at the top that says like, click here to load the sale coupon and start shopping. And if someone does that, when they get to the cart, the coupon code will already be there. So they won't have to have remembered to copy and paste it.
We almost never tell people coupon codes because it seems like a customer support problem.
Right, because they don't copy and paste them correctly, or they lose a digit somewhere, or so we'd like them to be happy on the first try.
Just a click.
If we possibly can.
Again, this is good, I think, for all of us to hear this. So often when I go to a site, and not take control, but I go to other sites and click here to load the coupon, I think of it as more of a come on and not just a way to reduce customer service requests or to make it easier for me. I feel like it's the other way. And now that you explain that, I'm never going to look at that the same way again.
No, it's just make it easier because coupons. If you think about it, if you do this at all frequently, you've got to have a system. So you've got to come up with a way. It's, CPN and some numbers and some letters and things like that. And then you've got to have a database in the back end, and it's going to be hard for people to understand. Or you can come up with really simple ones like back to school. This is our back to school sale. Oh, what do you want to do next year when it's a different back to school sale? So it becomes a situation where it's more complicated than people think. In a lot of situations, and that, click here to load the coupon is mostly just about, we didn't want to give you a 12-digit code to enter, because you'll either type it wrong or you'll copy and paste it wrong, or who knows what'll go wrong. And then you'll send email. We don't want to have to, we prefer not to have to help you, just use a coupon. That's something that we prefer that people could just do on their own.
Yeah. What is this a custom coded site from scratch, or is there something like I'm sure it's not a WordPress site, but
it's built in Expression Engine, which is a content management system, but it's all custom code. Okay. It obviously depends on certain aspects of Expression Engine behind the scenes for the sort of the content management side, but all the actual code is highly custom. So we didn't really anticipate doing it that way, but way back when. But one of the rules about content management systems is everyone builds one for their own purposes, thinks it's great, and sells it, and then it's fine for their purposes. So unless you want to be that publication, it's not useful for you, and you end up writing your own.
Right.
Yeah, and something I think a lot of people don't realize if they don't work on websites a lot is what the content management system is from the standpoint of someone who works on the site like me, is it's basically a huge database that I get into. And then to make all the different web pages on the site, we don't sit there tagging every little thing with HTML tags. We basically fill in database fields. And then when someone looks at the website, the web pages know to pull the fields out in a certain arrangement to create what you see. So it makes it much easier to create the pages once the content management system is in place, because you just are like, okay, the field is like short description or book title or number of pages, and you just type in the information, and then the site worries about how to get it on the page.
One of the nice things that actually was just, we didn't even anticipate this, is part of the upgrade, part of the reason why it took so long and was so hard, in fact, is we moved from Expression Engine 1.7 to 2.x. I don't know what the version is, 2.2 or something. And that was a really, really big upgrade for Expression Engine. And so it wasn't one of those things where you could just install it. You actually had to recode a huge amount of stuff. And so that was what partly with the developer, why it took the developer so long, because it wasn't just a matter of installing the new version. And he had to actually look at every piece of code and often update it. But one of the things that Expression Engine 2 brought was in version 1.7, you just got this huge long list of fields. I mean, we literally had something like 100 fields on a page, and you had to fill in certain ones. But, features come and go over time. Some of the fields weren't used anymore. Some of them we use only occasionally. Like we have a whole set of fields if a book has multiple editions, so that we can tell what the title of first edition was versus second edition, because they're different slightly. One has second edition in it, but you need to record that for other pieces of the site to use. But if a book doesn't have editions, you never see those fields. So one of the things that Expression Engine 2 allowed was it allows you to make, in the back end, which stuff we use, it has tabs, which you can pick just what fields show in those tabs. And so, at first we're thinking, oh, this is terrible, because it seemed much more much bigger, and the scrolling was going to be way longer. And after I realized this, I realized, oh my goodness, I can actually make really custom dashboards that we fill in. And so we just end up with these 3 tabs, only 2 of which we have to use, regularly, and only one of which Tonya uses most of the time. I mean, there's one that has a lot of metadata that you just put in once; it doesn't change, and so it turned out to be actually easier behind the scenes for us as well, which was a very nice side effect.
Something we haven't talked about yet is the e-commerce aspect of this. And I would think that's a completely different package that has to be plugged in then to your design or vice versa.
And another difficult thing, because anytime someone places an order, Esellerate, which is the cart we use, sends an XML notification to our site so that person's book is added to their account if they have an account. And if they don't have an account, because they've never shopped with us before, it creates an account for them and sends them email and all that kind of stuff. And that actually wasn't too much work to change, because it just moved over from the old site. And that, we built that a long time ago. But what was difficult was, because you're now building a cart on our site and then sending it to Esellerate to check out, how do you empty the cart on our site? That turned out to be the trick. And, we went through a couple of possibilities, and we had to figure out what Esellerate could do and what we could do and all that kind of stuff. And again, our developer, who was, is top notch on this stuff, came up with a really nice solution. But again, he didn't know Esellerate, so we had to figure out what Esellerate could do and how to link that up with what he knew how to do and make it all work. And as far as we know, it works pretty well. No one's complained about, I bought 3 books, and when I go back to your site, they're still in my cart, which is, would be sort of wrong.
Funny you mentioned that, because I recently had that experience where I ordered something from a site and then went back a day later and it was still in my cart, and I accidentally ordered a second round.
Whoops.
And fortunately, it was not a lot of money, and I was able to return it pretty easily. But the whole point is that, that kind of thing has to be thought out, or that's what happens.
Again, the world is harder than you think.
And just this whole layer of things that you don't really think about when you're shopping on the web. But any kind of smaller company is probably not running their own cart. And if they are, they probably regret it, because the cart, our cart, any good cart, handles a whole lot of business details. So the cart, for instance, figures out if it should charge VAT to all the folks in Europe. It figures out if it should charge sales tax to everybody in the United States, no matter what state and county they live in. And I believe it handles a couple really wacky ones too, like Hong Kong tax.
Well, it also does a lot of security stuff. We have one poor guy from Nigeria who can't buy from us normally because our cart just won't accept connections from Nigeria.
Regrettably, not from Nigeria. But the point that I'm trying to make, aside from Nigeria, is that our cart, they have lawyers and accountants and tax experts who spend their whole day thinking about this, and then they remit the proper tax to each country and each state. And we don't have to learn about that because there's only 2 of us, and we're already trying to keep up with Apple and run our own website. And it would just not be reasonable that we could do an appropriate job on the commerce side. And that's not to mention the fact that the cart also has relationships with, PayPal and Amex and MasterCard and all that. And they handle those relationships and handle chargebacks and all that kind of stuff. And really, we don't do any of that. We just, receive a check from them each month, our share of the sales. But the benefit of that is we can be in business as a very small company, but the unbenefit, if you will, is that sometimes the integration is very tricky. Like Adam was saying, it's really hard to figure out a way to accurately get the cart emptied. So it's something I think people may not realize when they're shopping on the web. Sometimes if things are a little clunky, like sometimes when you shop on a small site and then you check out on PayPal, and sometimes it doesn't quite go as smoothly as you might hope, it's because it's really hard.
Here's the other thing that actually I think a lot of small companies don't realize, and I've never gotten a good answer to this, but a lot of the ways that you can take payments on the internet don't do this. So if you just integrate PayPal into your site, PayPal's not filing taxes for you. So this is in theory something you need to be doing. But I'm willing to bet that a whole lot of people don't ever do anything about this. And again, state and county taxes around the United States, international taxes with the European VAT being the really big one, and the tax rules surrounding all this stuff are crazy. I mean, you really do have to be a tax expert to understand it. So my guess is that there's a whole lot of companies, small internet companies out there, which are basically going to be in trouble with the tax, with the revenuers, as we call them here in New York, with the revenuers if people ever want to crack down, or you travel to Europe and they pull your name up and like, oh yeah, come on over this way, we got to talk about VAT, because you haven't remitted it to the EU for however long. Countries in the EU do it separately, et cetera, but it is one of those EU broad things. So yeah, it's a mess, and it's one of the reasons why sort of doing business is harder than I think a lot of people quite realize it is. It's stuff you don't run into if you run a restaurant or a small consulting business locally. You're not doing cross-border sales. Whereas we are, and we want very much to avoid having it's called point of presence or business presence in all of these different locations, because that madness lies that way.
And anytime you're doing business on the internet now, if you're doing business, you're probably doing it globally. I mean, so all of these things have to be taken into consideration.
And if you're small enough, probably no one cares. But boy, when you get to some of those sizes where suddenly someone starts noticing you, you got to be careful with this stuff. I don't know. There's just a lot of this kind of business detail, which is not nearly as straightforward as we in the internet world would like to think it is.
Yeah. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't bring up security and the Ashley Madison hack. Now, I realize that you guys are in
I have not looked into it.
Good. Well,
we're clear we are not in the database.
Yeah. I couldn't say.
You're not in the database. I checked.
I chose not to check.
But you all...
I was very busy editing a book. It seemed a bit peripheral.
I was not implying anything. But what I am implying is that you do handle, or at least it passes through your site, some confidential information. Who handles that, or who has responsibility for that?
That's basically Esellerate handles all the
cart. The cart.
Okay.
And that's very intentional. I mean, what we know about people is we know their names, we know their email address, and we know what books they bought. That's basically it.
And even with their name, we know the name they chose to give us.
Yeah, that's usually pretty accurate because it has to associate with a credit card and Esellerate.
Yeah, so that's what we know. And given the nature of the books that we sell, it doesn't seem too damning.
Yeah. Right, yeah, no, I don't think, what?
This guy is really interested in photography and he likes to cook Thanksgiving dinner,
That said, one of this was, again, a benefit we got from moving to Expression Engine 2. It caused all sorts of problems in our code, which we discovered after we launched because we hadn't anticipated it, that it changed the hashing approach to passwords. So it didn't actually change your password, but whenever you logged in on a new site, it says, "Oh, I see that you haven't logged in here before," and it adds what's called salt to the database. So it just adds this big, long, random chunk of random data. And the idea is to make it harder if someone were to break into our site and steal our account database, it would be much harder to extract the encrypted passwords out of that. So salt makes it more difficult. And so Expression Engine 2 added more salt and did all sorts of stuff. But we weren't anticipating that was going to happen. And so because the same account database is used on the Tidbits side, certain Tidbits login stuff stopped working when someone changed their salt, and it was a mess.
Salt, sorry. And I guess I should emphasize even that I was like, oh, well, really all we could get is the person's name, email address, and what books they've bought. I mean, obviously, we personally can get that if we sort of log in as super users, because we have to sometimes help people who, have lost their books or lost their email address or something. But if someone else were to break in, but even despite that, as Adam said, it's not like it's just out there. We have groovy, salting and whatnot.
And interestingly, Esellerate does not so much for the take control side, but for the Tidbits members, where it's a more like a subscription. And then you can opt to have it automatically renew. If you do that, of course, they have to keep your credit card number around. And a lot of e-commerce sites do, in fact, have to keep credit card numbers around in some ways because you can contest a purchase. So if the credit card company says, customer contested this, you need to, as a merchant, need to reverse those charges. Well, you got to know who to reverse them for. So you've got to have a credit card number around. But the way Esellerate does that, and I suspect most other places too, is they don't actually keep the number. They create a one-way token. So they know that this token goes with this number, which they then go back to their processor with. Esellerate also doesn't have these credit card numbers actually stored. They just have the tokens stored. And so by constantly separating this information, it gets pretty safe. You get, well, it's one of those things where, hacking us wouldn't help, hacking Esellerate wouldn't help. You'd have to hack whoever the next people on down the line are,
and put it together.
Right. And then put it together. And the people further on down the line are not really publicly accessible, because they are not, they're a payment processor, not a website. So it's not like they have a public website that you're going to go to that would somehow have access to all this information. So I think the security there is pretty good. One thing we did, actually, another thing we just got for free by switching to Expression Engine 2 and, kind of updating all this stuff is the site just does HTTPS now. So, even when so the other concern, of course, is we have your email address and your name and your books, but you also have your password. And you shouldn't do this. You should not reuse the same password for every website. But if you do, at least we've got another layer of protection there. If you were logging into our site from a coffee shop on insecure Wi-Fi, it's via HTTPS now, so that would not be sniffable. So, again, relatively minor, we hope, but just another little thing where if everyone does it, then it ceases to be a problem for a whole lot of people.
Something you mentioned earlier, I think I'd like to highlight as a place where a lot of companies of all kind of products could benefit from, and that is you're keeping the iTools book there because people may go and click for an update. And I wish more companies would archive that material somewhere, whether it's software updates or information. But it's really annoying when you get a product, and maybe you bought it at a yard sale or something, and you go and try to find something about it, and it's disappeared. I mean, you might find discussion forums somewhere, but there's nothing there, and it feels like bad business to me if I'm going and looking for that. That's just as you said, Adam. It's a chance to upsell or resell something.
Yeah, with clothing. Clothing. You buy something, you love it, you wear it, it fits, you want it again in another color, or maybe it's worn out a little. You're like, here is my credit card. I would like another pair of pants that fit. You're like, sorry, we can't do that. We've decided that everyone who is your size is actually, has a different waistline than they did 5 years ago.
Which they may, but that's a whole other discussion.
We actually do have an advantage here. And our advantage is that every book we've ever published, possibly since like the first edition of Take Control of Upgrading to Panther, I don't think we quite had this for the first, like the 1.0 version of the Panther books, has what we call a check for updates link, or it's now ebook extras button on the current covers. And that is a special URL that brings you to our site. It knows exactly what book it is. It knows what version it is. And you don't have to be logged in. But it can provide that whole ebook extras page, so directly from the book itself.
Right. The book becomes your ticket. If you've got the book, you click the button and you come to the site, and the site understands that you own the book. It's pretty cool.
And probably the hardest part is, we've updated this over a couple of different sites and servers and all this, even URLs. And so we've got kind of crufty code that, knows how to unpack old versions of this and convert it into new versions because, not like it changed radically, but, the emperor.tidbits.com, domain isn't what the site responds to anymore. So, there's a whole bunch of little things here and there that work in that. But yeah, we keep that around. I don't know how many people use it. I mean, I could probably find data or figure out some way of finding it out. But it's more that why block someone? Why not make it possible for them to check in on this old book? Because it's no different than checking in on a new book. It would be extra effort. I mean, Tonya will say, "Oh, can you take such and such out of the cart?" I'm like, "Do I have to?" It's just easier for me not to change things. It works. Let's leave it working. And it's only until we get to a book where now you really shouldn't buy that book because iTool's kind of out of date. So, first generation Apple TV really shouldn't be buying anything about that.
But again, if you keep it there, or at least keep a link to it or something, you have the chance to say to someone, "Hey, it's really out of date, but we have this new book over here."
We do have, if you look at our website, we have on the left-hand side in the navigation, we have sort of categories there. The bottom category, second to bottom, is outdated titles. Now, outdated titles are books that are still for sale because, you could still want
what did we put in there?
Syncing Data and Snow Leopard. Perfectly good book if you're still running Snow Leopard.
Oh my goodness.
But we don't actually sell any, or we might sell one a year. But I figure for one a year, why not? Again, doesn't hurt anything to keep it there. This outdated titles collection has some really astonishing stuff in it. Take control of VMware Fusion 2.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It goes all the way back. It actually literally goes back to our first book, Joe Kissel's Take Control of Upgrading to Panther. You can still buy that for $5. Cheap at twice the price.
Today's edition of MacVoices is sponsored by Casper, a better mattress for a better night's sleep. To find out more, try one for 100 days and get a $50 discount. Visit casper.com/MacVoices and use the code MacVoices when you place your order. When you order a Casper mattress, you get an obsessively engineered product at a shockingly good price. We're not talking 5 or 10 or even 20% savings over what you find in the mattress warehouses or department stores. We're talking a whole lot more than that, because when you're talking about Casper, you're talking about a premium mattress, not one of the cheap ones. You're talking about the perfect pairing of latex foam and memory foam to give you a better night's sleep for brighter days. You're talking about a mattress made in America that can be had for $500 for a twin-sized mattress, up to $950 for a king. Compare that to any mattress that you've been looking at, and you'll realize just what kind of percentage savings we're talking about. There are other advantages to a Casper mattress too. First, you don't have to visit the mattress showroom, lay down for 5 minutes and try to figure out the difference between mattresses, or whether you like it or don't like it, and what fits you. Your Casper mattress comes with a 100-day free trial in your home. If you don't like it, and I can't imagine that, Then you'll have a painless return process where they send someone for your mattress. You don't even have to repack it. And speaking of packing, your Casper arrives at your doorstep in a compact box, just waiting to spring to life. Is your bedroom upstairs? I'm convinced that today's architects don't build houses to get mattresses upstairs easily. If you take your Casper upstairs before unpacking it, it's no more difficult than a big load of laundry. Then, open your new mattress, watch it spring to life, and be ready to go in about 5 minutes from the start of unboxing to finish. So what you've got is a premium mattress that is the best you've ever had, a great price, convenient delivery, easy to maneuver to your bedroom, and even easier to set up, and a free 100-day trial period. What more could you want? Oh, a discount? I've got that covered too. If you go to casper.com/MacVoices right now, you can get $50 off your choice of any Casper mattress with the discount code MacVoices. You need to go to that URL and use that code. So again, it's casper.com/MacVoices and the discount code MacVoices to get $50 off the best mattress you've ever owned. When you've received your Casper, I'd love to hear from you and how you like it, because I don't know anyone who's tried a Casper and been unhappy. In fact, they're usually better people because they get a better night's sleep. That could be you. Casper.com for the best night's sleep you've ever had and the discount code MacVoices to save $50. Do it today, sleep better by the end of the week. Thanks to Casper for their support of MacVoices. Is this philosophy, as you said at the outset, is this part of your mindset as writers that you maybe don't erase things, you just keep on writing to explain it or get it better?
I'm not sure if it's part of our philosophy, but it does seem to be what we do, doesn't it?
I would say this is something that we've always had. My mother, until, a month and a half ago, was the Cornell University archivist. We don't throw out data because you never know who might want it or why. You find fascinating things in archives that people saved and no one expected it was going to be interesting. I mean, some of the most interesting finds in linguistics and archaeology come from, papyruses that have lists of basically shopping lists or inventories. I mean, boring stuff that somehow didn't get thrown out. And I'm not saying that's going to be this important, but if you want to find out what upgrading to Panther was like, you're going to have trouble finding that on the internet. But this book still exists.
Yeah, and I see we have a book here. We actually revised some of the wording on it a little bit. It's for anyone working on the original iPhone or first generation iPod Touch.
Yeah.
If you've got one of those, we've got a book that explains how to run all the apps and stuff. So that's kind of cool.
And Adam, your point is fascinating because the examples you just used are all physical, and you publish digital books.
Where it's really easy to throw them away.
Very easy to throw them away.
And that's why we're saying, why throw it away? In fact, again, this happened at some point in the process when we built certain kinds of things, but we actually have all the versions of our books available. So let's say there's a book I'm blanking. Take control of iCloud. The first edition had 4 versions, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Actually, 5. I think there's 1.4.1 that fixed a typo. But actually, every one of those is nominally available. Not necessarily easily available, because really there's no reason why you'd want to get 1.2. But it is there. It didn't get thrown away. And even even kind of internally, we keep all that stuff because why not? Disk space is cheap. Disks just get bigger all the time, and you cannot predict why you might want something.
I had no idea we were going to get this deep into it, but this is a great discussion for anyone that is thinking about doing business on the internet, or maybe is doing business on the internet. You've given a lot of things they should think about. You've also given them some tips, whether they knew it or not, about how to be more responsive to the customer, and maybe how to reduce their own customer support headaches by building in some of this stuff automatically and thinking about it from the other side. You've taught me quite a bit here, because I said before, I will never look at those click here to load the coupon banners again the same way.
Honestly, I actually like to hear from customers very much. The very best messages, of course, are things like, I loved your book. It rocked my world.
And here's a picture of my pony.
And here's a picture of my pony. And I have actually gotten a few pictures of ponies and pets over the years, and they're really great. But one of the reasons why we did have to redesign the website, besides the look, was we got to the point where there were a few things people were complaining about over and over, and we could not fix them. They were technically impossible to fix with the site. And that is such a downer, to a couple times a week be writing back to someone and saying, yes, you have discovered the exact scenario where when you use this coupon code in PayPal, it will fail. And we're so sorry, but our authors will kill us if we add a paragraph of text to the cart explaining this, because it really is like 1 in 1,000 orders. So that kind of thing was really a downer. But the great thing about customer service is they'll let you know if something isn't right, and then you can try to address it. So,
and the very nice thing about our customers is they're nice, rational people. We almost never get people ranting at us. And almost every time we do get someone who's ranting because they don't actually know us very well, and one of us replies reasonably because we're reasonable people, they apologize. Almost always. I mean, like, oh, I'm sorry, I was having a bad day, because it's usually stupid stuff, like they were running some wacky ad blocker and it whacked the download buttons in the receipt page. They couldn't get the book, and they think we're fly-by-nights. And I'm like, oh, sorry, here's the book. We'll just email it to you. And
I would say the main really unhappy customers that we get, and by the way, if you are one of those people, don't feel that you must send me an email message about this topic, is there are people who quite reasonably are just very unhappy with the pace of change of Apple and their technology. And the thing is, for us to have a business and to have jobs, we have stopped. We might debate internally about the value of certain changes, but ultimately kind of the foot we put forward is, we're going to learn this. We're going to be reasonably excited about it. We're moving forward, because that's just what we do. There is no business model in writing books for people who don't want to upgrade their computers.
Take control of Get Off My Lawn.
I'm just saying, if a whole lot of people were still buying our books about snow leopard and mountain lion, then there would be a business model in supporting those people. But the fact of the matter is, for whatever reason, those people are not shopping on our site.
We understand.
Maybe because we're too perky about the new stuff. But we do get it, and we certainly have relatives who have made the case for this extraordinarily clear.
Oh, yeah.
but there is nothing
not to upgrade all the time.
There is nothing that makes people grumpier in their email than
iTunes,
confronting, yes, the disappearance and relocation of the sidebar in iTunes causes more vitriol in email than you could possibly imagine. If I had
your pain.
If I had a personal line to Apple, I would call them every day to talk about the sidebar, but they're not interested. So so that is a customer service fact.
Yeah, I just had this discussion with a user group. I did a user group appearance this week, and it's one of the points that I try to make to them is if you're not excited about what's coming, that doesn't make you a desirable audience, and it doesn't mean that you're an invalid audience, but it just
or if they would even excited about not upgrading, but about spending money on products.
Right. That's the real problem is this is across the industry. This is by not us in any way, shape, or form. Is if people wanted Snow Leopard to stick around and everyone to support Snow Leopard, they'd have to be continually making it worth everyone's while to
vote
focus
with
on
credit card. Right?
It's,
If I had 1,000 people send me emails saying I desperately need a book that will explain to me how to do whatever it is, and I will prepay for it, we would do a book about it, no question. we'd have to like go find a Mac we could run it on.
But we got lots in the attic.
But it just seems like the focus of people who are going to spend money on stuff is just very much on the newest thing, and not. I don't know that that's
not a bad thing.
You could judge that any way you want, but we have to pay our mortgage.
Well, sure, and I think we saw with a little bit of a twist that happened with Windows XP, where it wouldn't go away,
it wouldn't
go away because people didn't want what was being foisted on them. That's a characterization, sorry, but they didn't want it. They had something that worked, and there was too much hassle associated with upgrading. And and I don't think you see that for the most part with Apple. I know there have been some things people love that are new. There's some things people don't love so much that are new. But as you said, you got to keep going.
We hear from a lot of people.
We got our share email from people who are just really dissatisfied about the whole situation.
The big ones are people who didn't want to go past Snow Leopard and iTunes 10, although possibly even earlier versions of iTunes.
Well, the thing is,
this is a bigger topic.
If you just don't really use iCloud and you just don't really use a lot of internet stuff, you can stay where you are. It's fine. It will still word process just the way it always did, right? It's that all these cloud services and stuff.
You want to get an iPhone, and then suddenly all hell breaks loose. That's kind of what it comes down to. That if you can stay on a Mac as a computer, you're fine. It's when you start wanting to connect it to the rest of the stuff. And we are starting to see a little bit, Snow Leopard is actually old enough now that we are starting to see, key software simply not being updated for it when it is important. So, this is an internet problem in general as well. But I do think, sort of the whole upgrade thing, and actually, I don't know, maybe we're not immune to this as well. So many upgrades of software seem to merely be upgrades for the sake of upgrading. And, did we just do that with our website? We completely redesigned it. There is no connection to the old site, just none. And we think it's better in every way. And hopefully we brought forward all the features that people liked from the old site, because it drives people nuts when there's an upgrade.
Except for there's one feature we are working on.
Yeah,
just in case anyone is sitting here saying, what about the thing in my library? We're working on it.
Yeah. we actually, I think we were right to get rid of the feature. We just didn't understand what people wanted well enough to have tweaked what we did do. But yeah, so this is a problem, is that I don't want to redesign this site hugely again in 5 years and have a completely new one. The hope is that this will stick around. Software is different than websites, I think, because software apps, for better or worse, I think historically are more self-similar. Websites. People expect websites to be different. You don't expect Apple's website to look like Microsoft's website to look like Google's website. And so, there are certain interface commonalities, and you do hope those work the same. But certainly web design is a serious, and usability experience is a serious profession now. But within apps, you expect them to be more similar. And so when an app changes radically, particularly if it's something you use every day, we don't expect people to use our website every day. We barely use our website every day. You have a relationship with that app, and if your spouse suddenly came downstairs wearing chains and leather and with dyed hair, you might think twice about it. And it's like, oh, what, you don't like my new look? Just decide I'd change everything. Why not? That's not a good thing. So, I think interface designers are going a little overboard on some of the, well, it's so much better when we do it this way. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
But at the same time, you have to keep up with the standards, and you have to keep up. And there are things that are changing on the back end, like we talked about the cyber liability issues. There are things that you have to keep up. Back end
stuff is different.
Yeah, you have to keep up. Well, I think the front end stuff is different too.
Well,
because
and then
you start to look archaic. Listen, I can name a lot of websites I visit, and one of the reasons you're hesitant to buy from them or pay attention to them is because they look like they were designed in 1990. They may function just fine.
It's our problem.
Well, no, I don't know. I'm not buying that. You don't go back that far, but there are things that just have that look that we all built sites like that back then, but now you've had to move forward and to stay credible.
Well, I do think web design is a bit different. I think really that is as much like a corporate branding look as anything else. Every store will have their sign, every company will have their logo. It's just going to be different. You don't expect them all to be the same or to function the same because everyone has different functions behind them. But I said when you get into apps, Apple used to have human interface guidelines that were
They still do have human interface guidelines.
Oh, really? How could you tell?
I've got them on my iPad.
She got you.
We should go over that with iTunes in mind because
yes, I know.
That's something like 5 different menu types.
Yes, I agree that they are not following their guidelines the way they used to.
But it used to be a very big deal that had all these commonalities.
And that's a topic for another show.
Yeah.
Because I think we can shoot down a rat hole there and a good rat hole because I think it's important. And I'd love to do the devil's advocate argument on that one. But so I want to wrap this up because we don't want to go too long for your sake. So we've got the new website and obviously books continue to roll out. We just talked to Kirk McElhearn about his new Audio Hijack book. What's next for Take Control? And I don't mean the next 2 or 3 books, but just philosophically, you just want to keep it rolling and put out the same kind of quality books or any changes in the wind?
We don't really have any big stuff. I mean, the website was huge. And I think it's easy to underestimate the psychological weight of, frankly, an albatross of a website where you kind of don't even want people to see it because you're so embarrassed by how old it looks. And you feel badly about how you're presenting yourself to the world. And so I think, getting the new website and just saying, it looks great now. We love our cover designs look great. The whole thing, it has new features. We actually can add new features again because we're not sitting there, cringing at what would have to be done to move the new feature forward again. So, so I think that is going to be a big deal. In terms of major new stuff, no, we don't have any really significant things right now.
We not only just completed this website design, but not even quite a year ago, we designed a whole nother type of book, our crash course, which is just a faster read. And so for, I would say, the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to be just sort of enjoying the work that we've already done and not trying to invent anything new and just, sort of keeping up with Apple and enjoying the new website and the new book designs. We're looking for more sponsored books. We love to do sponsored books because those books,
sponsored books where we work with a particular company to write a book about their product. Still a completely independent book, but it's usually when we're like, this is a great product, but we could never reach enough people.
Right, like Rogue Amoeba's Audio Hijack that was just on MacVoices, I think the previous episode.
Yeah.
So we'll do more of that. And then I am sure that in another year or so, it will be clear that we need to sort of start steering in a certain direction, and we will do that. But in the meantime, it feels good to me right now to not be trying to invent anything new and just to enjoy the technology and the book designs that we've got and make content. Yeah.
Yeah, let's be real clear that you're talking
it
about.
Is what we actually,
the content is the important thing because
content is king.
So I think you've both said at one point or another, keep up with Apple, and that's no small feat. There's a lot going on.
It used to be one version. It used to be a new version of Mac OS, 18 to 24 months. Now it's 3 freaking operating systems once a year.
Yep, we got the watch. We got the iOS and we got the Macs, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot to keep up with. And hopefully our new crash courses and our current crop of authors and the fact that we're not trying to think so hard about the website will make it possible to get through the next 3 months gracefully.
Well, folks, I would encourage you, go and check out the Take Control website. buy a couple books, especially with the 50% off sale. But more importantly, think about everything that Tonya and Adam have talked about here today and what's going into making that website tick and giving you a positive experience. I think you'll appreciate it.
Fingers crossed it all works.
Yeah, well, yeah. And
it'll work.
And if you find something that doesn't work, tell them and email Tonya a picture of your pony. So
yes. Pictures of ponies get you a long ways with customer support.
Yeah.
They do, actually.
And chocolate.
It's pretty good.
Guys, thank you so much. It's been a blast. I'm so glad we got to catch up. And maybe next time, Apple Human Interface Guidelines.
There we go.
Or lack thereof.
Or on that note,
see you, Chuck.
Take care.
Good night.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. We will be back with a whole lot more soon. Interesting stuff like this that's very, very tightly focused, or maybe just general interest stuff. Hopefully stuff to make you think. That's what we want to do. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the MacVoices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free MacVoices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.